Today we're making old-fashioned molasses spice cookies. These cookies are crisp and craggy on the outside, they're soft and chewy in the center, and they're full of warm fall spices. So find yourself some molasses and let's get baking. We'll get started with our spice cookies by putting together our dry ingredients. That's going to be 2 cups of all-purpose flour, which adds up to 250 grams if you're measuring by weight. A little bit more. All right. We'll use 2 teaspoons of baking soda. ¼ teaspoon of salt. If you're using a coarse salt, you might want to make that a heaping ¼ teaspoon of salt. And then here come our spices. So if you want, you can use 2½ teaspoons of any kind of spice mixture, like pumpkin pie spice or apple pie spice mixture, anything along those lines. Or you can go with the original recipe, which calls for a teaspoon of cinnamon, 3/4 of a teaspoon of ginger, ground ginger, and another 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cloves. That is a lot of cloves, so if you feel like that might overpower it a little, you can always go with a little more ginger or a little more cinnamon, as I'm doing here, and just not quite as much of the clove. And of course, if you want to add in allspice or something else like that, go right on ahead. They're spice cookies, not rocket science. All right, so those are our dry ingredients in the bowl here. We're just going to whisk that together, whoops, and onto the counter, so that the spices are evenly mixed in, and probably more important, the baking soda is evenly distributed, so we don't have pockets of baking soda in some places and other cookies that are just totally flat. Good rule of thumb is to mix your dry ingredients or your leaven or baking soda, baking powder, for about 30 seconds, whether you're adding it to flour or other dry ingredients, or you're adding that leavener directly to, say, butter or some other wet ingredients. All right, so we'll call that pretty well mixed. We're going to set it aside for a minute. And here come our other ingredients, a whopping 4 more ingredients. We will put into the bowl. I'm using a stand mixer here. You can use a hand mixer if you prefer. We're using vegetable shortening, in my case, good old-fashioned Crisco. And we'll be using 12 tablespoons or 3/4 of a cup, or if we're measuring by weight, 138 grams of vegetable shortening. You can use butter, but this is definitely one of those old school recipes that is just a little bit better, softer, etc. with that vegetable shortening. So go ahead and do it. If you have a preferred non-dairy like margarine butter substitute, that would work okay in here too. All right, just make sure if it's salted that you drop the salt down in the recipe a little bit. All right, this is of course unsalted. All right, to that we will add 1 cup of plain old granulated sugar. That comes to 200 grams, by the way. Perfect. Molasses. All right, it's a new jar, so if we can get it open, Finally. All right, so we're going to add molasses, and we need a quarter of a cup of molasses. This is never fun to measure out and then get out of a measuring cup. So if you are measuring by weight, 85 grams, definitely a good one for measuring by weight. So 85 grams of molasses. If you can't get a hold of molasses, you can use dark corn syrup, honey, golden syrup, but really molasses is what makes these cookies, you know, have the kind of signature old-fashioned spice cookie flavor. So let's see. The sound of a truck coming down the street. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Lovely background music for the pouring of the molasses. A little bit more. And that should do it. All right, clean up the edge of the jar. Later, one more ingredient, an egg. If you remember to take this out of the refrigerator before you bake, great. If it's cold, it'll be just fine. All right, so in goes our egg. I'm gonna clean up my hands a little bit and mix this together in my stand mixer, whether you're using a stand mixer or a hand mixer. You want to give that, I'm going to give it 2 to 3 minutes of mixing, scraping down the bowl as needed, and as it mixes, the mixture will be lighter in color and in texture. So not exactly fluffy, but definitely a little bit lighter. And so we'll see that when it's done mixing. After 2 minutes of being mixed in the stand mixer and one time scraping down the sides, this is what my mixture looks like. So a little bit fluffy, a little bit lighter in color than when it started. And now we will just add the dry ingredients. We're going to do that in 2 batches, so I'm going to add about half of that. Put this back in the mixer and mix on low at first so that we don't get a big puff of flour across the kitchen, and then add in the rest of that flour, and we just want to mix until everything is thoroughly incorporated and not over mix. So we'll see when our cookie dough is all mixed together. And there we have it. Our flour is thoroughly incorporated into the cookie dough, and if we want, we can scoop and bake these cookies right now, no chilling necessary, although the dough is a little soft. So I'm going to wrap it and just put it, or cover it even, and just put it in the refrigerator for maybe 15-20 minutes, just to let it firm up a little bit. Of course, if you want to delay your baking, you can leave that dough in the refrigerator for a day or 2 easily, or freeze it for longer. But I'm going to stick this in the fridge, clean up a little bit, and then we'll be ready to bake these off. Our cookie dough has chilled down in the refrigerator. I have the oven set to 375 degrees, a lined baking sheet, and a cookie scoop ready to go. I am just going to add one optional step to this recipe, and that will give the cookies a little bit of a sparkly, crunchy exterior, and that's to roll the balls of cookie dough in some sanding sugar or demerara sugar that has been mixed with a bit of cinnamon. You could definitely do this without the cinnamon. You could do just the sanding sugar. You could do granulated sugar and cinnamon, or you could skip that altogether. Totally fine. So let's get scooping. The cookie scoop I like to use is about a tablespoon in size, or just a little bit bigger, and that gives me kind of small cookies, but I figure we can always eat more than one, and that way the folks who say, oh, I don't know, should I really have a cookie or not, it gives them the option of having just kind of a little bit of cookie. All right, so I'm going to scoop, actually do 3 or 4 balls of cookie dough at a time when I'm tossing them in something, and just kind of toss those around. They don't need to get like super thoroughly coated, but just a little bit of sugar on the outside. All right, so we're going to keep going with that, and when that tray is filled up, we'll show you how it looks before it goes into the oven. Our cookie dough has taken a tumble in the cinnamon sugar mixture, and it's ready for the oven. Make sure you have some space around your cookies. They will spread as they bake. These will take about 8 to 10 minutes in the oven. They're on the smaller side. If you use a larger scoop, closer to 2 tablespoons, your cookies will probably take 10 to 12 minutes. We'll be looking for them to spread out and kind of have a crackly appearance on the top, but still to have plenty of give in the center because they will firm up more as they cool. All right, we'll see them when they're out of the oven. Our cookies are out of the oven after about just shy of 10 minutes. We can see they're nice and crackly, but if I touch one, still super soft in the center. Never fear though, friends, they are done. I'm going to let them cool on the cookie sheet for a few minutes and then transfer them to the wire rack to cool the rest of the way, and we'll take a look and a bite when they're all done. And here we have our cooled cookies. They have flattened out as they cooled and have a nice crispy texture on the outside and nice crackles on the top. But they are still soft in the center with plenty of chew. We hope you give these a try and you check back every Friday at 4 o'clock for a new recipe.